Hey everybody, Steve Burns here from ChromeIllusion.com. Alright, so as I promised, I was going to bring you a tutorial that was going to be based on using displacement maps in Blender, where we can actually alter that displacement map or the results of the displacement into actual geometry. I shared this tutorial with you once before, but I shared it with you in a slightly different light, in that I also overcomplicated it at that time. The previous tutorial was specific to CG creation. So what we were creating was a displacement that was designed to be seen in a CG environment, not to make actual geometry. I'm going to show you a way to actually create actual geometry from your displacement, and it's going to be super easy. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and bring in inside of Blender a plane, single plane. So Shift A, and put down the plane. Let's go ahead and get in close, hitting the period key on the numeric side of the keyboard. Let's go inside in edit mode. Right click. Let's go to subdivide. And right down here for subdivision, I think I'll go about 100. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, subdivide it because I need additional points and polys in order to displace the map based on black and white values. All right, so let's get out of here. Let's go to object mode. So what I'd like to do is show you the texture that I'm going to use. I'm going to bring over bridge. Now, I downloaded these textures from online, and what we're looking at here is our color map, our displacement map, your actual normal mapping, and I believe this is going to be your rough mapping here. Okay. What we are interested in is only the displacement map, this one right there. Okay, so based on the values, the darker values will be your valleys, while your brighter values are going to be your peaks. So these values are going to displace your mesh. So you think like a screen mesh, like the mesh in a screen door. It's all going to be displaced based on the shading of the values. Okay. All right. So let's get out of here. Let's minimize this, and let's actually bring that in. All right. I'm gonna go right down here to the bottom, and we're gonna go to the middle. Actually, let's go add a modifier. We're going to add a modifier under the deform menu called displace. We're going to put it in, and you can see your actual subject just moved upward. That's because this modifier is displacing it, but it has nothing to displace it with in terms of an image. It's just using a natural displacement to move all the points in the plane. Now we need to tell it what type of texture we want to use. Now, to bring in the texture, right below your materials globe here, you'll see a checker pattern square called texture. If I click it, I can give the new texture here. If I click on new, I can tell it what texture to bring in. By default, it gives me an image or a movie, or I can even use actual other clouds or marble or moose grave as a procedural texture to place on here, but I'm interested in the image in this case. So right down here in the middle, I have a new or an open. So we're going to go to open the image, go get the image. I'm going to go navigate to where I placed the image, and I placed it right over here under my presentations files, and I have a Blender class folder, and then I have the rock wall right there. So I click on the rock wall, and here is the texture I'm interested in, the displacement texture. Okay. Now these are 2K textures, so but you're welcome to download 4K, 8K, higher resolution if you see fit. I find the higher resolution textures are going to give you the best results, but for tutorial purposes, I'm going to use this. Let's go ahead and click on the image, and there we go. It just started to displace. Now, let's come back to the modifier. Click on my blue little gear here. There's the modifier. There's the strength, right? So if I hold the shift key down and click and left click and drag, I can control a little bit better what's going on here, the actual displacement sizing. If I get in closer, and you can see the actual brick layout pattern there. Now I need more detail. So what I'm going to do is add in another modifier called a, let's go right over here, called a subdivision surface. Click it, add it on there, and we're going to give this more subdivision levels. I want it really smooth. The levels by default is 1 and render is 2. I want them both to be 3. So I'm going to add 2 and 3 and the same thing for the view. Now, look at I'm going to cascade these up a little bit. Look at the organization of these modifiers. Our subdivision surface is on the bottom, right? I'm going to take it and drag it to the top because the placement of your modifiers make a difference in this case. So I want to smooth it out, give it subdivisions first, then add the actual displacement. So if I drag it up just like Photoshop layers, drag it up and put it there, boom, look at what you've got, right? That looks just like your brick texture, right? That's looking beautiful. Now, if I want to add more detail to this, I want to see even more detail from that displacement image, we'll go right up here to the subdivision surface modifier, and we'll tell it instead of 3 levels of subdivision, let's give it 4 levels of subdivision. And let's watch very closely here what happens. So I'm going to go to 4 levels of subdivision. See, it gained even more texture. I might even go to 5. Let's go to 5 and see what happens. And there we go, and you get even more detail. So we'll stay there. All right, so we got a lot of detail. Look at that. Look at that detail. All right, now the goal here is to make this a take this and make it an editable mesh so that we can use this inside of Unreal Engine. So this is going to be a solid object exactly as we see it, because right now it's using a modifier. If I turn off the modifier for displacement, it's going to go away, right? It disappears. If I so right now that those bricks shapes and designs, or that texture coming from that displacement map, doesn't exist yet as geometry. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and I'm noticing that that subdivision level of 5 is really I can hear the processors, the fans going on in my computer here. So it's adding a lot more, but okay, we'll take a chance on this one. Now, I want to make this mesh. It's simple as this. We simply apply the modifiers. Come over here to the modifier, drop it down, apply, and it's a lot of geometry which is going to apply. So there it is. It's all done. Now we need to apply the next one. Apply it. And there it is. Okay, there's your geometry. It's so if I go inside, edit menu, go to edit, just for giggles. Okay, that's a lot of points in here because we added those greater levels of subdivision surfaces. We're going to see a lot more geometry. Now you can also, there it is. Okay, so now if I now we're seeing all the points and all the edges, I should say. I should go ahead and drop this down and turn off the wireframe option here, and I'm gonna go back into my object mode so we can actually see it without. There we go. All right, so it turned off the wireframe, so now we can see the actual. So this is actual geometry that you can bring into Unreal Engine. You can also 3D print this as a diorama. The 3D print, you're going to want to give it some thickness. You're going to want to add a modifier of solidify to. So be mindful of how much subdivision levels that you're going to use for this. I used a higher version just for tutorial purposes to show you just how good you can get with this. But for 3D printing, you really don't need that high of a subdivision level. Okay. You save this out as an FTL, not FTL, but as a STL, I wanted to say, STL file, watching too much Battlestar Galactica. And this will 3D print. Okay, so there we are. So that was, that's what I wanted to share, how to alter your your displacements that you're seeing in Blender into actual geometry that can be used for 3D printing or placed inside of Unreal Engine. All right, I hope this was helpful. Steve Burns signing off from ChromeIllusion.com, and more to come.